Hey up lads and lasses, Damphyre here, back again with some more Infinite Lagrange. Today, going to jump into the AT021. I unfortunately don't have the multi-role unlocked, so I haven't been able to really test this too much, which is a little bit unfortunate. I can sort of tell you how it works. I have seen it used, I've had it used against me, and it does okay. And I've got a couple of battle reports I went through and checked for that. I have managed to test the pulse and the interference type though. So yeah, we'll start with those, and I'll talk a bit about the C-type at the end. But you know, it's unfortunate I don't have it really. It's the one, I think it's the last fighter I'm missing. Oh no, I'm missing the BR050 thing, aren't I? Yeah. Of which, no, I have part of it. So yeah, that's another one that I've unfortunately been unable to like personally test properly. So the pulse cannon type works almost identical to the Strix, to be honest with you. It's a slightly lower damage output. Something to note, which I found weird as well, is even though this is priority target against destroyers and frigates and stuff, it works kind of like the Spore with its counter-attack, and it seems to generally try and counter-attack aircraft before it seems to go after frigates and destroyers, I've noticed anyway. Although I've got some weird battle reports of this thing doing a bit of everything. This, in my opinion, can be used as an AA. However, I would recommend that it's used as your last resort, and you should be running Mistral, Spore, or Strix before you consider trying to use this, because, like I said, the battle reports are just weird. Sometimes it goes priority on fighters, bombers, and corvettes. Sometimes it just ignored them and it went into frigates and destroyers. So it's too... it's not consistent enough for my liking to go, yes, it's a really good AA ship, definitely run it. Start off with the propulsion system though. Going into ship evasion here will actually help you out, keep it alive a little bit longer. These things are quite squidgy, I found, and just sort of dropped out the sky quite quickly. Even the Strix and the Spores seemed just better ability to just stay on target and stuff. And then going into the ship system, the armor system here, and we are unfortunately in a position where you only have 2 slots. Short range stealth coating is pretty much given nowadays because of Winged Hussar being around, and then taking up one of the, well, probably the aircraft armor enhancement. So if you do upgrade it, you can get a bit of bonus HP going as well there. And that's just to keep it sort of alive. Now, the weapon system's a bit of an odd one because it gets buffed by its energy system at the same time. What I'd recommend, though, is coming into and grabbing the hit rate against frigates, destroyers first, and the double cooldown I found worked slightly better, and then coming back out, going to the airborne energy system, picking up the main duration by 40%, and rounds per cycle is increased by 1. And that's just this level. Obviously, as you upgrade it, it gets a bit better than that. And this is actually a really, really strong buff because, again, duration buffs really, really good, and rounds per cycle, you know, increasing the amount of rounds is really good here as well. After that, going back into the main weapon system here, and you kind of like probably want to pick up the delayed attack. After the battle begins, extends the lock-on time of the first 2 rounds attack by 40%, and increase hit rate of the main weapon by 40%. This means it takes longer for it to lock on, but this means it comes out behind a few things, so you can definitely get this in a position where you have a screen out in front and this thing's going to get in and get its damage properly out without being, you know, harassed by enemy interceptors and stuff like that. And it actually works out quite nicely. But again, this is your 4th slot out of, you know, hit rate, double cooldown. You're now taking a delayed strategy, and you don't necessarily need the hit rate against cruisers and higher, so you're picking up a single pulse damage at the end there. You can drop the strategy if you'd rather just have it out straight away and a bit quicker, and pick up the double damage, and that definitely will get more damage output out. This gets a consistent ability to get damage output towards the start of the battle. But again, this is a very short-winded strategy where once it's used and done, you might be better off with having the double damage. So you need to try and work out if you can get these out behind everything anyway and keep them alive or not. Coming back into the airborne weapon system, picking up airborne energy system, picking up the energy core output, increased damage. Either one of these really doesn't matter, just to increase the damage a little bit further. This hasn't got much damage, so buffing its damage isn't amazing. You can get an extra, I think it's about 50 or 60 damage output, so you bring it up to about 250, 260 damage per hit. Again, with the extra attack per round, really, really good. Duration dropped by 40% as well by the energy system. It does work out quite nicely, and it brings this thing into like its own into terms of damage output. But again, it's inconsistently targeting AA, and it's sometimes targeting ships instead. It has got good damage output potential, but then it's still not as good as, say, V2B for ships, or even Stingrays tend to do a little bit better than this. And I don't know, it's such an odd one to really, suggest, because there are just like better in slot at any given point. So I'd probably put the Ava in sort of mid-table in terms of, anything. Potentially even lower if you consider the fact that sometimes it goes AA when you don't want it to. Sometimes it goes anti-ship when you don't want it to. So yeah, it is a bit of an odd one, which is a bit unfortunate. The B-type is a very interesting ship. It's very much a utility ship, much like the Balancer Anderson or the SE0020 or whatever that thing is. The one with all the numbers. I say that, but half the fighters are just numbers. It's actually quite good, and I started running this over balancers in my fleet just to get the jamming output of it. It has pretty much the same jamming capability as the Balancer. So you'd kind of like want it to be doing that mostly. It is a hit rate debuff, which is actually really quite nice. Dropping the hit rate on enemies is just good in general. It's got so much built in, like evasion. You can see here we got 10% on the prop system. On the electronic system here, just at base, you get an extra 30%. You're dropping hit rate by 12%. So it becomes very difficult to actually kill these. You can get a further 16. Wait, I can't do maths apparently this morning. Yeah, 16% for both of them, right? Yeah, further 16%. So now you're rocking 46% evasion. You can pick up a chance of being hit by missiles again here as well, which is what I'd recommend. It does put us in a weird position where now all your props are just used for evasion, because you only get 3 slots. But it's worth it, taking over the reciprocal and the target selection times, in my opinion. The target selection times would be nice, but having this out with that kind of amount of evasion just means if it does get targeted, it takes a while for anything to really kill it. It's not got the best HP pool, but again, still takes a bit of time. It's still, sort of taking targets, making your enemy target them, is keeping other ships alive, your Mistrals and stuff maybe alive a little bit longer. So trying to keep these alive for as long as possible is just great, in my opinion. Onto its armor system. Again, you can further pick up even more missile and torpedo reduction, making Wing Tassar really struggle to hit these things, and then picking up one of the ship HPs. And this is before we get into the jamming system, which we start now, where we go into the jamming system, and yeah. Failure adjustment interferes again and increases the inbound time by 35% when failing to interfere. This allows it to pull back slightly and basically try and get a second interference off. There's a 35% chance of it. And this is actually really, really good because it actually means you can almost consistently, between like 10 of them, always have something jammed up at any given point. Really, really powerful strategy, this. Definitely check it out and recommend it. And then prioritize unjammed targets is fantastic. It allows you to spread your jams out across multiple enemy ships, and a 12% hit rate debuff is really nasty on some ships. Things like Wing to Sar AA, when they take hit rate debuffs, it drops their ability to shoot aircraft down enough that it gives you about an extra 30 seconds for you to try and win the air battle. And once you're in that position, it's pretty much GG for the enemy fleet if they're running Swarm, or even to an extent Hybrid. Hybrid doesn't completely rely on aircraft damage, but it does quite a bit. So being able to jam them out, amazing. Definitely check out the prioritize on jam target mixed with failure adjustment. It's definitely in my recommended list there. We also have multiple ways of just annoying things even further. We have the reduce the chance of being hit by direct fire by 30%, but reduces the interference effect duration by 50%. This makes you even tankier, but it is going to drop the amount of time that things are jammed for, which is a little bit awkward. But you can actually increase the jamming duration considerably. So you can offset it, or you can choose to ignore it. So it's kind of up to you a little bit on that one. I choose to offset it because I think it's too good an ability to take 30% even more dodge rate, bringing these up to like 76% dodge rate against direct fire weapons. Yeah. And that's not including, you know, a hit rate of 12% debuff. If they do get targeted by aircraft, they sometimes jam the aircraft. And now it's like this poor Mistral's got like reduced hit rate, and it's trying to hit something that has 76% dodge rate. These things are really, really strong for sticking around, and very, very commonly, these are my Balancer Andersons if I run both in fleet. When I tested them and I ran them separately, like to test them out to compare them to the Balancer, both these and the Balancers were like around till the end of the fight. And all my other aircraft had died at that point. It was quite funny. And yeah. So I actually recommend grabbing this basic build order then. Failure adjustment to start off with. Prioritize jam targets. Interference cover at 3 of your 7 slots. Then I'm picking up the double jamming duration for 5 of the 7 slots. And you can either go, the cooldown actually doesn't matter too much here. There is duration on here, but you got a 5-second cooldown anyway. And with the duration increases, the cooldown actually like is still faster than its ability to re-jam anyway, even with the 50% debuff from interference cover. So you might as well come back here and then either pick up the reduce the lock-on efficiency of anti-aircraft weapons has on you and the aircraft within the same carrier by 10%. This will basically make things like Wing to SARS and stuff like that harder for them to lock onto you, and means they can't, they won't be able to like lock on quite as early, which means you can normally get in and get some damage output before you start losing craft to anti-aircraft fire, which can be quite useful at the start of the battle. That would be the 6th slot that I would pick up. And you kind of like left with taking one of the cooldowns there for your 7th slot, I believe. So it's failure adjustment, disperse interference, interference cover, electronic cover, double jamming, and yeah, one of the cooldowns. You have got fast lock here, which reduces the target selection time of the weapon by 6%. But again, it's a 5-second lock-on time. It's enough. It's not too bad here, and it's not really what this thing's for. I would highly recommend, if you are getting this, to upgrade the reduced hit rate by an additional 10%. This actually brings this debuff down to 22% hit rate debuff on your enemies. And it is really, really, really good. So yeah. After that, you have got an airborne weapon system. It basically does nothing. I would probably take this as just as a potential counter-attack. So you go into the hit rate against fighters, corvettes, and then double cooldown. and then one of the damage. But you can go double hit rate here, double cooldown will work just as well. The hit rate, the other hit rates against frigs and destroyers, so it gets a little bit of damage as it starts jamming frigs and destroyers and stuff like that. But again, you're not going to see much damage output from this thing at all. And generally speaking, it's not built for that whatsoever. Command system, same as pretty much everywhere. You got the increased maintenance efficiency of the system by 5%. You can leave or take it. It's completely up to you. Really, really strong, the B variant. If you don't run jamming yet, definitely give it a go. The ability to like drop hit rate on some ships is like really detrimental to their ability to deal damage. Things like the A-type IO and the B-type IO, which highly need a lot of hit rate to, you know, get going and get the damage output consistently. You start jamming things like those, chimeras, spears, they just start missing. And when they start missing in that sort of quantity, it's really bad for them, and they really start struggling to, you know, hit anything, get damage output, and it saves your fleet a lot of damage in those instances. So yeah, definitely check out the B-type. Again, it can be done with the balancer. It can also be done with the SC002 if you don't have the AT021 B-type. But the B-type is, in my opinion, the best of the jammers. Moving on to the C-type. Now again, I don't have this fully unlocked, so I've had to work on battle reports in this instance, which is a bit unfortunate. But yeah, I don't spend thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on this game because why? I just don't understand it. So into the propulsion system first is what I've been recommended. Ship evasion and the hit rate is pretty much a given again, which is quite nice that this ship, the B and the C type, have that hit rate on there because the armor system gives you a further missile reduction. So there is your pretty much start is, you know, evasion against missiles, going to the armor system, HP, more evasion against missiles and torps, and then going into the weapon systems. Now, the weird thing with this one is the weapon systems are unfortunately split. You have its main system, which is this missile launcher. It's an okay amount of damage. It attacks systems, which is quite nice. Unfortunately, it's command system priority, and then its weapon system. But it can still, you know, it still does eventually target weapon systems, which is quite good. And then you have its second airborne guiding system, which is another missile launcher system with 350 damage per hit. This would be really nice if it was the main system, but now we're, you know, stuck with only 3 slots here. It's a little bit awkward. I do still highly recommend, though, coming into this backup weapon system, as it were, and upgrading one of the hit rates, and then either going double damage, which actually works out quite nicely because of the damage output of this, and the fact that even if you try and reduce the cooldown, it doesn't reduce particularly too much. So my recommendation is a single hit rate and double damage, which is unusual because normally I would recommend double damage here, but I think getting 1 or 2 bigger shots off in this case is a little bit better. Again, the survivability of this thing is not too bad, so, you know, you could argue maybe going for cooldown there. Going into the main weapon system after that, we have the multi-target strategy. It attacks every 2 rounds, with the main weapon now attacking 2 targets, increases weapon damage by 75%, reduces hit rate against the target's loading system by 10%. What I believe this does is it reduces the hit rate when it's trying to hit the primary weapon system. I have not been able to confirm that because I haven't been able to test this myself, which is a bit unfortunate. Either way, it's actually quite a good strategy. You are going to lose around 30% damage, but you're doing damage to twice as many targets. So in theory, even though you're losing 15% damage on both targets, you're dealing 75% to 2 targets, which actually works out quite nicely. Actually, so in theory, it's only a 15% damage loss because you don't have to count the second target as damage loss because it wouldn't be there anyway. So yeah, you lose 15% damage for 150% damage, basically, if you think of it that way, attacking 2 targets at the same time. So multi-target strategy is probably worth picking up here, as well as you only have 40 damage per hit. So yeah, you'd probably be going into hit rate here, weapon system duration by 50%, rounds per cycle by 3, and that's 1 of 2 upgrades. Again, this is really, really nice. So absolutely grabbing hit rate and the target duration. I'd recommend then going double cooldown. Cooldown here on this weapon system is actually only 6 seconds, so bringing that down lower is actually pretty good. But again, you only have 6 slots to play with the multi-target, hit rate, duration, double cooldown. You only have a single slot left. There's no... I don't think there's enough sort of reason to go for crit here, so you are probably best off just picking up one of the missile damages here. And that's pretty much it. Command system, same as everything else. You can have priority on small capital ships. Is that recommended? With 350 damage? It probably is, actually. If you're seeing like an abundance of Swarm running Frigg Destroyer, I would probably pick up the target reset, and the ship's primary weapon prioritizes attack on small capital ships. It has the damage output to actually damage those quite consistently. So yeah, I would recommend that, and that will also mean that your second system should also probably reset, and hopefully go for the small systems as well. And yeah, getting hit by that kind of damage, even though it's not particularly well buffed because we only have 3 slots, should do reasonably well. It's unfortunate I don't have the C-type to test it myself properly. Again, I'm just going off battle reports and what I've sort of heard and seen, and I've had used against me and stuff like that. A couple of guys that I've tested with have them, and they've flown them against me. It's how I got most of my battle reports. And we tested a few things out there and then with different setups, and we couldn't really quite decide on which ones were better because it was very, very minimal differences between 2 different setups. One with the crit, one with the damage, one with double damage and single cooldown, and stuff like that. So that is the AT021, the A-type, a possible AA contender, but it doesn't seem to consistently work at AA. I think it is because it is counter-attack, so it works similar to the Spore. But the Spore will just like nuke aircraft for, whereas this just like depends on the pilot's mode, what he wants to shoot at. I think the B-type, the interference size, a very, very, very powerful utility aircraft. Highly recommend checking it out. Interference and jamming is actually really quite solid nowadays. Maze, I don't see more people running even a couple, like 5 balances in fleet. I normally have like 86, I think, fleet aircraft. So those last 6 are being filled up with AT021s for me now. And yeah, they do some work. The jamming alone is just worth them coming in, let alone the fact that they can just face tank everything for a while because of the amount of dodge rate they can get. And the C-type, unfortunately, don't have it to be able to test. It has good damage output. We didn't notice much damage difference between the A and the C-type, but the C-type potentially has a higher damage sort of ceiling. It's just whether they can stay around long enough to sort of dish it out or not. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.